Hey everybody, before we get started, I want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel. I love to make these videos about all types of photography, but I especially love to talk about the Fuji X100F. I've got a couple of videos on here about this camera, and I've got more coming up. Today we're going to talk about using the flash that is built into the camera, but the next video I'm going to make is about using an external flash on this camera, and that's one you certainly don't want to miss because you can really kick up your photography game with this camera by adding an off-camera flash or a flash on camera that you can bounce. But right now, let's talk about when you don't have that flash. Let's talk about when you're trying to work unobtrusively and small and quiet, or you're just trying to carry your camera with you all day. You don't want to carry that extra gear, which is one of the great things about this camera. So let's talk about that little flash, the one that's built in right here. So most of the time I don't use this flash because being a professional photographer and specializing in weddings and events so much, I'm really a stickler for flash photography, and I don't want to use direct flash. And that's what this is. Anytime you have a flash that's right on the axis with the camera, that's direct flash. And what it does is it blows you out right here. It removes all shadows from anything on your face or on your clothing, and this means that you get a two-dimensional look to you as opposed to a three-dimensional look. And a three-dimensional look is what you get when the light comes in at you from an angle. When you think about it, when you go into a studio, the light is always coming from an angle. It's never coming right at you. So this is direct flash, and I'm not a big fan of it. But, you know, there's times when you're out and about and you just don't want to carry the extra flash. You're going to be carrying your camera around with you all day or all night, and so you don't take it. And you figure, you know, I'll shoot natural light. And then suddenly you find yourself in a situation where natural light just isn't going to do it for you, so you have to use the flash that's built into the camera. Well, there are a couple of little tricks that you can use to minimize the, for lack of a better word, negative aspect of using this flash. First of all, if you set the camera to its auto settings, or mostly auto settings, and you just let the flash do its own thing, you will usually get a properly exposed picture on the person. The flash is going to read the person's face, and it's going to give you the right amount of light on that person's face so that you see it well. But with this particular camera and this flash, one of the things that I've noticed is that, for my taste anyway, it tends to put a little too much light out. Now, if I'm using a flash that's direct, my goal is to use as little of it as possible. I really want it to just kind of lift up my subject a little bit, just kind of remove some of the shadows a bit, but I don't want it to look like a typical flash picture. Because if it's going to look like a flash picture, then I want to use a flash that's off the camera or bounced off a wall or something like that. I don't want it to look like it was shot with a flash picture where the flash was on the camera, because then it pretty much looks like a cell phone picture, and nobody wants that. So my goal is to just cheat it a little bit. So what I do, and it's very simple, is I typically, when using the flash in the camera, is I set it to -2/3. Now all you have to do is go into the flash settings, and I've got my flash settings button programmed around the back of the camera where it's quick and easy for me to get to. Hit that button, bring up the flash, turn it on, and then kick it over to the right, and then just turn it down. Turn it down to -2/3. That seems to be right about right for me. And if you look at these pictures, you can see that the first one, where I let the flash do its own thing, she's lit bright and everything's fine. But if you look at the second one, where I turned it down 2/3, it looks a little bit more like she may not be lit by a flash at all, right? It could possibly be just natural light, right? Maybe? Well, anyway, it certainly looks like it has a better chance of fooling the eye than the first picture where I took a picture with full flash power. So really, that's my secret. The other secret to managing your flash when using this direct flash is to try and use as little of it as possible by getting as much natural light on your subject as you can. So typically, you want to have your background be about one stop lower than the person who you're taking a picture of. This makes them pop out of the background. They stand out because they're a little bit brighter than the background. But in order to do that, you're going to have to light them quite a bit because you're turning down the natural light. So a lot of times, if I'm using my flash, direct flash, in this fashion, I'll go in the opposite direction. I might actually overexpose the background a little bit if it gets a little bit more light on my subject that's natural light. Because the more light that's on my subject, the less light that the camera is going to put out. And I don't want the camera putting out any light at all. I'm doing it under protest. So use as little flash as you can when you have to use it. If you're going to have to use a lot of flash, you're really better off with a dedicated flash on top of the camera or off the camera with a radio remote. And I'm going to go into that in great detail soon in another video. So subscribe to this channel so that you are sure to catch that, because it's going to be eye-opening for you. If you don't use off-camera flash, or you've never used off-camera flash, or never thought about using an off-camera flash with the Fuji X100F, you're going to be amazed at what you can do, and you're definitely going to want to see that video. Also, be sure and check out my podcast, which is called Photobomb, and you can find it anywhere that podcasts are done, iTunes or any of the podcast apps. And be sure and join me online. I have a Facebook group, and it's called Pro Photo Talk with Boo-Ray, and it's nothing but professional photographers talking about photography all the time, and it's a great group. All right, we'll see you soon.